In the spring of 1944, Squadron 617 of the Royal Air Force received a shipment that would leave the base's engineers completely absorbed. 22 Lancaster bombers arrived at Bro, which literally had no doors on the bomb bay. The men of Squadron 617 thought it was complete madness to fly in them, since this opening would not only make them vulnerable to interceptors, but would also make the bombers as slow as a World War I plane. However, they decided to follow orders because after they arrived, the bombers received a shipment that would make everything make sense: the Grand Slam bombs. In this video, we'll talk about the curious Lancasters of Squadron 617, the bombers that flew without doors on the bomb bay, and of course, we'll also clarify the strange consequences of this curious practice and the reason behind it. So you'd better get comfortable and welcome UNSCLO. At the beginning of 1944, the massive air campaign to weaken Germany as much as possible was at its peak. Every day, dozens of missions were launched into the heart of the Reich, and the factories that kept the Wehrmacht running were being destroyed one by one. Because of this, the Germans gradually began to fortify everything that was important, and if possible, put these factories underground. Factories producing both military equipment and vehicles. They were now fortified and either dozens of meters underground, out of reach of any incendiary or surface bomb used by the Royal Air Force. Likewise, to optimize the bombings on these fortifications, engineer Burns Willis would have the solution to this problem. Willis had earned the respect of the Royal Air Force. After creating the successful bouncing bomb, it caused irreparable damage to the German dams. We completed Operation Chastise in the famous one. He was a renowned engineer, so anything he wanted to develop would get the Royal Air Force's approval. And to no one's surprise, his proposal would change the conflict forever. His goal was to create bombs as enormous as possible, and instead of destroying with the explosion itself, they would use seismic waves to take out the munkers, a concept he called earthquake bombs. This new paradigm promised to increase the effectiveness of attacks and the range of targets that a Lancaster bomber could attack. The Labro Lancaster had a fairly long bomb bay, 10.05 meters, allowing it to carry really large bombs or many regular bombs. The largest one they used at that time was the Cookie, which weighed 1,818 kilograms, suitable for strong fortifications, a usual load for an area bombing. It looked like this with a Cookie and 12 half-kilogram incendiary containers. But the new bomb from Wireless would have nothing to do with the ones that already existed. At the beginning of 1944, the Tall Boy would be introduced, which was 6.4 meters long and weighed no less than 5,448 kilograms. It was so heavy that Lancaster could barely carry just one, and it was so big that they had to make structural changes to the bomber. Also, in those first months of 1944, Squadron 616 would receive 24 new Lancasters, the Bomber Mark, one special which had modified doors in order to carry a Tall Boy by plane. The doors were widened so that the bomb could fit in easily, making the plane a bit slower but still functional. Squadron 617 used the Tall Boy to destroy the Saumur railway tunnel in France at a depth of 18 meters. It is even said that Tall Boy detonations damaged the propulsion and caused flooding on the turpits, which gradually contributed to its sinking. However, the Tall Boys failed miserably when they tried to attack even deeper and more robust bunkers, as well as the type of bunkers used for the U-boats. Therefore, it was necessary to create an even bigger bomb, and so, after months of development, in 1944, the Grand Slam was created. This bomb measured 7 meters long and weighed almost 10,000 kilograms. It was enormous, and tests determined that the bomb could penetrate German bunkers and even much deeper than what the Germans could build. But there was a problem. The Grand Slam was too heavy to be carried on a Lancaster bomber. It was short by 3,500 kilograms of payload to be able to carry it, and even a diameter of 1.7 meters. That made it too big to be carried directly by this one. It didn't fit in the bomb bay. There were no other bombers, and there was certainly no time or money to design a bigger one, so changes had to be made. In December 1944, Squadron 617 witnessed an unusual event firsthand. After months of testing solutions to fit the enormous Grand Slam inside the Lancaster, the engineers made a rather incredible decision. They simply removed the bomb bay doors and loaded the bomb. That was the order Squadron 617 received. Remove the doors from the special Lancasters to fit the enormous bombs. This decision was bold and, of course, extremely dangerous, but it solved the transportation problem. The modifications were similar to what was seen in the Lancasters used for bouncing bombs, with an initial modification to the fuselage to improve the aerodynamic load, Lancaster Aerodynamics. The modifications were similar, first changing the fuselage to enhance aerodynamic load. The breaker hairbrush, the speed. A Lancaster specially loaded with the Grand Slam was flying at 270 kilometers per hour, almost half of what a normal Lancaster could reach. And what about those extra kilos of load that the Lancaster needed to carry the enormous Grand Slam? They removed it by eliminating armor and instruments they considered unnecessary, making the plane very vulnerable. However, it accomplished its objective. It was the largest bomb of the conflict, the 617 Squadron. He wasn't happy to use these strange Lancasters, but they still had to do it. And on March 14, 1945, the first Grand Slam was used. The Bielefeld Viaduct in Germany was attacked, which had been targeted repeatedly by conventional attacks without any success. It only took one Grand Slam to completely destroy it. If you're wondering how it was possible for such a slow and vulnerable Lancaster to enter Germany, attack, and leave without any problems, it was thanks to the fact that at this point in the war, the Luftwaffe was really weakened. There was little fuel and few planes in general, so much so that the Special Lancasters entered German territory with minimal escort, and they could carry out their mission perfectly. During the last months of the war, 800 tallboys had been used, attacking a range of targets that went from surface bunkers to ships. A little over 60 Grand Slams were also used on deep infrastructure in surgically planned missions, destroying bunkers and defensive positions that normal weapons simply couldn't touch. All of this made the Special Lancaster PMK 1S go down in history for their daring way of flying. Did you know that B-17 bombers would drop their ball turret to the ground if needed? In this video, I thank you for watching and say goodbye.